sitting on the end there? I go come in like this.
No, you're good right there. I can even move it in a little bit more.
I'm doing the door for plus 15 and then I'll be.
Okay.
Shana Tova, welcome. We're going to start right off the bat with a reading by Rabbi Annie Lewis. For those of you who have the supplement, whether you have signed on at home or you are here, it is in the supplement. It's comes in the supplement. A New Year by Rabbi Annie Lewis. I'm running now into a new year. How it hurts to run into something, even to walk into it instead of passing it by. Pause here at this doorway in time, age old and brand new, to stand in this arch and cry out to the dome of the universe, to break through the ceiling with song, follow the light through the cracks now, and find your way back to source. Shana Tova, Shabbat Shalom. Welcome. A few words for which I will pull down my mask. You will see that I will, at different parts of the service, in order to be sure that I am clearly heard, pull my mask down, which is why we have the setup the way that we do, so that all of you are at least 10 to 15 feet away from me here on the Bima, and 10 to 15 feet away from David Steinau, who will be sitting over there. Some of our experiments over the course of this holiday season are going to work out well. Hopefully many of them, hopefully all of them, but probably not all of them. But as I said last night, this too shall pass. So some of them will disappoint, and we'll continue to learn and continue on. An important difference that you'll notice, whether you are here or at home live streaming, is that our service, particularly today, is going to be significantly shorter. That means certain prayers and readings have been left out, and in many cases you can find those on our YouTube channel. Some were chanted by David Steinau and other members of the congregation who usually participate. Just want to offer a review of the instructions that I received last night. For those of you tuning in at home, we are live streaming on both Zoom and YouTube. YouTube will be recording and retaining everything, so you'll be able to go back and watch anything you might have missed. You are muted, but you can participate in the chat function on either platform. If you see that you're not muted for some reason, please do so now. And members have received a printed schedule and guide in the goodie bags you got the other day, which has the links to the streaming, but presumably if you're hearing me streaming, you already have those links. But it also has the cell phone number of our tech coordinator, Larry Harold, who is also monitoring the chat functions and doing some troubleshooting that way. Remember, not all glitches are going to be able to be fixed in the moment. We will certainly do everything we can. The sound is going to be something that we're going to just have to keep playing with, and I apologize to those people at home. Our system doesn't accommodate both a PA system, the system so that people can hear me, and then also a system that catches right into the computer. So we're doing the best that we can, and I'm trying a different mask, so hopefully that will be better. Those of you in the sanctuary, I think you've all got your books with your name, your bags with the name on it, prayer book. Those are yours to keep them here in the sanctuary. Your seat, those will be your designated seats over the course of the holidays that we will be here, and we ask that we keep all of your things together. Please remember, we will be following all social distancing and masking during services. Please be sure your mask is fully covering your nose and mouth at all times. If you need a mask break, please step outside. You'll see, you've seen our sanctuary set up, and as I said, when I am giving announcements and when I'm doing some of the readings, I will not be wearing a mask, but the rest of the time I will be. And again, that's why we created this space around the Imam. And finally, as I said last night, so much of Jewish celebrations revolve around the familiar tunes and songs we know. And as we've learned, communal singing and even communal responsive reading is considered high risk for transmission of COVID droplets, even with the mask and all of the other precautions. So I'm going to ask you, sadly, to refrain from singing as much as you can, or just sing and read very softly out loud if you do. And we really appreciate your going with the flow, as it were, and helping us get through this really unprecedented way of doing our Rosh Hashanah services. And we will start in the prayer book on page 100. Praise is the one whose word brought the world into being. Praise be God. Praise is the author of all creation. Praise is the one who fulfills your promises. Praise is the one who carries out your decrees. Praise is the one who has compassion in the world. Praise is the one who has compassion among your creatures. Praise is the one who rewards those who revere you. Praise is the one who abides for all eternity. Praise is the one who redeems and saves. Praise is the Holy Name. Baruch Shema Gayam, Baruch Baruch Hosei Bereshit, Baruch Omer Hosei, Baruch Hosei Kayem, Baruch Merachem al Haaretz, Baruch Merachem al Habriyot, Baruch Mishalem Sakrito B'Reah, Baruch Ha'elad Kayem Netzach, Baruch Godei Hatzir, Baruch Shema. Baruch atah Adonai, Melech v'tishbachah. And in your supplement, no matter how many times by Jaden Diamond, the Rosh Hashanah service has focused on the Melech, which we're going to hear David chant for us in just a moment. HaMelech, the idea of the sovereign of the universe, the sovereign creator of the universe, sitting on its throne, on the heavenly throne, and we, in our role of the created by the Creator, approaching this throne, with our open hearts, the hearts that we started to pull open and examine, the hearts that we started to send out and reach out with to the people who we need to heal relationships with. our heart that may be grieving, may be sad, may be disappointed this Rosh Hashanah, our heart that may feel expectant, anxious, scared, happy, all of those things we are bringing out our hearts as an offering of the feelings of a sense of our heart, as this offering to Hamelech, to the sovereign. Adonai, glory be your name for all eternity. Wherever I walk, may I find you always. In the kindness of strangers, in the stars, in the warm summer's breeze, in the laughter of my friends. In the fields of flowers, in the transition of the seasons, in music set to glorify you. And in my darkest moments, may I find you in my doubts, in my despair, in my stumbling off the path of righteousness, in my shame, in my fear, in my failings. In the moments I was rude, in the moments I should have done better, no matter how many times I fall, no matter how many times I return, no matter how many times I have sought you out, you were always there. At every moment, just you, only you, forever you. Adonai, how beautiful is your name. Adonai, how holy are your works. Adonai, how gorgeous is the universe, so filled with wonder and beauty. Adonai, God of Israel, holy are you. Continuing on page 132 in our prayer books, page. Varli nafshi et Adonai v'kol et shem kosho ha'el tatzino v'zakro v'dovi v'shemecha ha'gibor l'netzach v'ha'mara v'noratecha. And we rise for Hamelech, the calling out the king. This first calling out on this first holiday morning is just to say, hey, we're here, we're coming. May be seated. And the Hatzi Kaddish is on page 136. The Baruch Hu is on page 137. 138, for those who are able, please rise at your seats or in your hearts. Please be seated. Maranatha, Adonai Eloheinu, Yotzer Orim V'Moshe, Osei Shalom V'Yakov, Or Olam V'Otzar, Hayim, Olam V'Otzar, Amar, V'Yayim. Continuing on page 144. L'El Asher Shabbat Mikol HaMa'asim, V'Hilal Yashem, Al Kisei Kvodo. You provide light for the world and its inhabitants, whom you created in mercy. In your goodness, you renew each day the work of creation. How numerous are your works, O Lord! In wisdom you made them all. The earth is full of your creations. O King, you alone are exalted from of old, praised, glorified, and extolled from the beginning of time. Eternal God, in your abundant mercy, have compassion upon us. You are the Lord of our strength, rock of our defense, our saving shield and refuge. May you be praised for with infinite wisdom you created the brilliant sun, magnificently reflecting your splendor. The lights of the heavens radiate your majesty. The hosts of heaven praise you, Almighty, forever declaring your glory and holiness. We praise and glorify you, Lord our God, for your wondrous works, and for the bright luminaries you fashioned, which everlastingly reveal your glory. Page 148. Or Chadash Otzion Va'ir V'Yismech HaMamera Le'oro. Baruch Atah Adonai Yotzer HaMeorot. Some of you might remember the Alan Schwartzer family, and Shara McCollum is a poet, and they moved to the State College area. I reached out to Shara and I said, I'm finishing up my year of poetry, and these are my themes for the High Holy Days. And please, 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 you have a poem of yours that you can share with us. So it is in the supplement. It is the poem called October 2008. Most mornings this fall, I wake to rain, stitching across the lawn, crows not yet cawing. I know dawn will collect wayward moon, scattered stars into night's pocket. But in this still dark, quiet room where I am, my body forms an absence, frayed, hole in the center of my suburban home. Soon news will break, promising nothing new, endless war, the election, mirroring the natural world's notion of change. Leaves burning scarlet, announcing autumn as if it were a first. Upstairs, my husband and children breathe into pillows their dreams. I turn to see the woman I have become reflected in the window's glass, a stranger moving her finger across my cheek, trying to decode an old story etched as if in braille on my flesh. The Shema is on page 154. Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. V'ahavta es Adonai Elohecha, b'chol levavecha, u'b'chol nafshecha, u'b'chol meltecha, v'hayu advarim ha'eleh, asher anochi mitzavecha, hayom al levavecha, v'shikantam b'nanecha, v'dibartam, v'shiktecha b'neitecha, U'leftecha derech, u'shoftecha u'kunecha, u'kshertam le'od al yadecha, v'hayu levavecha bein einecha, u'ktatam al mezuzottecha, u'b'ishparecha. And we continue silently coming back together on page 158. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם amen. And continuing on page 162, in every morning and evening service we sing Lemi Hamocha and the words, who is like you, God, among the mighty, express the overarching sentiment, but it is also that reminder of Tziat Mitzrayim, of the coming out from Egypt, the release from bondage that we can think of as literal or figurative, with the idea that each time we have a new day, we have the opportunity to be released, to find a release, or to move closer to that sea that we need to cross in order for us to get to the other side. We sing Mi Chamocha V'Ani Adonai, Mi Chamocha Nedava Kodesh Navati Lo Tosef Peleh. Who is like you, O Lord, among the mighty? Who is like you, glorious in holiness, revered in praises, doing wonders? As a reminder that we are not facing this journey alone. Yom Baruch Hu Mivoram, Moshe B'Yisrael L'Chanu, Shira B'Simcha Rabba, V'Amru Kulam, Mi Chamocha V'Ni Adonai, Mi Chamocha Nedava Kodesh, Norati Lo Tosef Peleh, Shira Shashimu V'Elim L'Shimcha Satayam, Yachad Kulam V'Guli Mitu V'Amru, Adonai Yimlok Le'olam Va'ed. And as we say, Tzul Yisrael, Kumam Ezrat Yisrael, as we ask the Rock of Israel to stand to help us, we rise first to show our willingness to meet the challenges along the way. So we rise. Tzul Yisrael, Kumam Ezrat Yisrael, U'tekim Yehuda Yisrael, Galing Adonai Tzilot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai, God Yisrael. And the Amidah begins on page 164. In the interest of being able to lead you and you hearing me with the mask, I will not face the art as is traditional, but face out to you. And the microphone and all of you out there. Nisol Kopani, Kopani Kamibani, Umile Dat Divini, et de Hati Bitfila, the Takanumi, the Kalo, Ufane, the Megalakope, Adone Adoni. Continuing on page 172. In love, Adonai, Elohim, in Zion, Ledor, Vador, Hallelujah. Ledor, Adonai, Gibonacha, Olenetzah, Netzach, Kedushat, Hanavish, V'shivcha, Elohim, Lo Yamush, Le'olam Va'ed. And we continue silently coming back together on page 180. You feel free to be seated when you have finished with your prayers, either in your book or in your heart this morning. On page 180. May the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord show you kindness and be gracious to you. May the Lord bestow favor upon you and grant you. In the book of life and blessing, peace and prosperity, may we and all your people, the house of Israel, be inscribed for a good and peaceful life. Praise are you, O Lord, source of In our supplement, A Poem Without End by Yehuda Amichai. especially in these moments where we are physically distanced, sheltering in place and sheltering in peace, making our homes, our our homes are sanctuaries from which to worship, an extension of this building and place, this home without an end. Inside the brand new museum, there's an old synagogue. Inside the synagogue is me. Inside my heart, me in my heart. Inside my heart, a museum. Inside the museum, a synagogue. Inside it, me. Inside me, my heart. Inside my heart. And we will continue with the Torah service. And just a word about today's Torah service, which is going to look very different and probably feel very different than our usual Torah service, whether on Shabbat or on a holy day. Since I am the only person on Bina this year, I will be doing all of the handling of the Torah, including carrying and reading. We will not have the custom of walking through the Kahal and having people touch the Torah. It is such a symbol of what it means to be Jewish, to come in, to turn in at that moment, to turn in towards the Torah, to claim our piece of the Torah in our touching and our kissing of it. And so I want to acknowledge that for me, and perhaps for all of us, it feels that feels like a big loss. But remember, this too shall pass. With your permission, what happens in the future. As for the readings and the aliyot, I've divided the readings into 3 segments. And we will do a group aliyah for each segment. Whether you are here or home, I invite you to say the Torah blessing for the aliyah with the theme that is most meaningful as your intention and focus for the upcoming year. The themes are hopes for our congregation and our local community, hopes for our country, and finally hopes for the world. Those of you who are here in the community today, I will count on you to say the blessings in person on behalf of everybody who is out and not here in person. We will not be doing the Haftarah readings in person this year, but they have been pre-recorded by Tom Solomon and Lawrence Roth, and are available now on your YouTube channel. And I also encourage you, as always, to look for your maps or read them yourself. See if perhaps the experience of just reading them separately from the service gives them a new meaning or a fresh meaning for you in this year ahead. Torah service is on page 190.
In God, God of me, the Lord, the end must stand. While good God, while good God, woman striketh her, the poor door by door. What
Please rise as the ark is open.
Israel, wie gut hat
Page 198. Adonai, Israel, Adonai, Eloheinu, Adonai, Echad. Echad, Eloheinu, Gadol, Adonenu, Kadosh v'Noach Shemo. The Torah readings can be found in your book, starting on page 202. So as I said, the first Aliyah is on behalf of the congregation. So for all of you who are thinking about our community, the future of our community, the hopes of our community, for those of you who are in leadership positions in our congregation, for those of you who are just thinking that this year to come is going to be for you a year of turning inward to your community, your congregation, and and connecting or reconnecting, I invite you to rise for this aliyah. And the prayers. Or blessings themselves are on page 200. And say this, softly, but Asher diber oto Elohim, vayikra Abraham, et shem beno Lado, asher yalad lo Sarah Yitzchak, vayamod Abraham et Yitzchak beno, ben shmona yamim asher tiva oto Elohim. Abraham ben Achshana, Vayivameno, et Yitzchak beno, Vaytomer Sarah Sechor, Asad li Elohim, Voshomer Yitzchak li, Vaytomer li Abraham, Vayivameno Sarah, Ki yalidati ve'yismina, ve'yigadal ha'yelet, ve'yigamal, ve'yas Abraham, nishte gadol b'yom ha'gamel, Yitzchak. May heavenly blessings be granted to all the members of this congregation and to all their loved ones. May they be granted kindness and compassion, long life, ample sustenance, divine support, health of body and health of spirit, healthy children who do not neglect their God. May the Lord of the universe bless them, guard them from all distress and disease, and be their help at all times. Let us say, Amen. May all strive today in honor of the Torah, in honor of Rosh Hashanah, the new year, and in honor of the uplifting of our congregation. May our efforts individually come together to bring this community to a place of wholeness and security. May we continue to sustain this holy congregation in the central Susquehanna Valley. May we be a place where all Jews and all seeking wisdom will turn in their time of both joy and of mourning. And let us say, and for the next aliyah, you can double dip on the aliyahs. You may have to. So some of you, is for the focus on our country. For all of us who are thinking about the direction of our country, whether today in this moment, in the last however many years, and in the future however many years. For those of you who are this year, in this season, especially turning your thoughts towards bringing holiness to our country, and restoring peace and health and safety to all who live in it. This aliyah is for you, so please rise. And you may begin. Our God and God of our ancestors, we invoke your blessing upon our country, on the government and leaders of our nation, and on all who exercise rightful authority in our community. Instruct them out of your law that they may administer all affairs of state in justice and equity. May peace and security, happiness and prosperity, rights and freedom forever abide among us. Unite the inhabitants of our country of all backgrounds and creeds into a bond of true kinship, to banish hatred and bigotry, and to safeguard our ideals and institutions of freedom. May this land, under your providence, be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all people in peace and freedom, and helping to fulfill the vision of your prophets. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn more anymore. All people, both great and small, shall know the Lord. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless all who rise today in this community, in the community watching us online, and in communities around the world, particularly in our country. May we protect those who rise up against injustice. May we protect those who rise out of the fervor and love for our country, and strive only to see it reach its most perfect self. May be strengthened, and may be closed. Amen. finally, our prayer for for the world. So many of us, all of you in this, who I'm able to look at and see your faces, and many of you whose faces I am assuming are out there. Some of them are. I know are not only concerned about this congregation, are not only concerned about our country, but also understand that we are all connected in this world. And so the pain and the suffering that is being felt across the world is pain and suffering that we can feel, sometimes we can understand, sometimes we share, but always we can show our support. So for those of you who are thinking about and holding the prayers for our entire world in your heart this morning, and you may begin. We cannot only pray to you, O God, to end war, for we know that you have made the world in such a way that we must find and have peace within ourselves and with our neighbors. We cannot we pray to you, O God, to end starvation, for you have already given us the resources with which to feed the entire world, if we would only use them wisely. We cannot only pray to you, O God, to root out prejudice, for you have already given us eyes with which to see the good in all people, if we would only use them rightly. We cannot only pray to you, O God, to end despair, for you have already given us the power to clear away slums and give hope, if we would only use our power justly. We cannot only pray to you, O God, to end disease, for you have already given us great minds with which to search out cures and healings, if we would only use them constructively. Therefore, we pray to you instead, O God, for strength, determination, and willpower, to do instead of only to pray, to become instead of merely to wish. For your sake and ours, speedily and soon, that our land and world may be safe, and that our lives may be blessed. May the words that we pray and the deeds that we do be acceptable before you, O Lord, our rock and our redeemer. And while Victoria is here as our witness, I want to offer a special blessing for healing, and which is a special blessing for healers, those who God put them on the front line of a pandemic, those who risk putting their families at risk themselves to come and to protect us and to keep us safe. Those blessings by Violet Cohen. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless all those who put themselves at risk to care for the sick, physicians and nurses and orderlies, technicians and home health aides, EMTs and pharmacists, hospital social workers, and respiratory therapists, and all whose names we do not know, but on whom we trust our lives. Those who navigate the unfolding dangers of the world each day to tend to those they have sworn to help. Bless them in their coming home and bless them in their going out. Ease their fear, sustain them. Source of all breath, healer of all beings. Protect them and restore their hope. Strengthen them that they may bring strength. Keep them in health that they may bring health. Help them know again the time when they can breathe without fear. Bless the sacred work of their hands. May this plague pass from among us. Heal and in our days. Page 237. Prayer for Israel. O guardian of Israel, we ask your blessings upon the people of Israel and the land of Israel. Bless them with peace, tranquility, and achievement. Bless them even as they have been a blessing to us. For they have nurtured our pride and renewed our hopes. They have gathered in our homeless. They have healed the bruised and broken. Their struggles have strengthened us. Their sacrifices humbled us. Their victories have exalted us. Their achievements enriched us. They have translated into fulfillment the promises of your ancient prophets. They shall build the way cities and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and drink their wine. Truly, they have made the wilderness like Eden, and the desert like the garden of the Lord. Watch over the land, we pray, protect it from every enemy and disaster. Fulfill the prophetic promises which still await realization. Violence shall no more be heard in your land. There shall be no desolation within your borders. Zion shall be redeemed for justice, and they that dwell therein for righteousness. We say, Amen. You get off this year, take a break. Give you another year to what? We're gonna stick with our program. We're doing it in your hearts. We rise as the Torah rises. Page page 258. Please be seated. Shabbat Shalom, Yom Tov, Boker Tov. בראש השנה יכתבו ביום צום כיפור יחתמו. On Rosh Hashanah it shall be written, and on Yom Kippur it shall be sealed. This is the refrain of one of the central. Remember that time on Yom Kippur when there was a motorcycle battle outside? It's going to be back. And all the other interesting things that happen. On Rosh Hashanah it shall be written, and on Yom Kippur it shall be sealed. This is the refrain of one of the central prayers and themes of the High Holy Day liturgy. It refers to the rabbinic teaching that on Rosh Hashanah our souls parade in front of God in judgment, and those who have performed worthy deeds in the past year will be inscribed in the book of life. Those whose deeds are not worthy go in, the other book. However, we always get to turn that around, which is why the prayer transitions from written to in Yikateru to seal, Yichatemu, at Yom Kippur. In the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we focus on the things that lessen the decree of any unfortunate judgment. Tshuva, Tefillah, and Tzedakah, atonement, prayer, and righteous living. On Yom Kippur, I will be talking more about this concept and its metaphoric equivalence. But today, I want to introduce another teaching that is commonly evoked by this prayer, which is that it is our job to write our own book of life. Each of us write our own Torah, our own teaching, our wisdom. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are merely yearly editing sessions, if you will, looking back at what we have already written and planning what we want to write and report in the future. For those of you who received our High Holy Day goodie bag, you will have gotten a small journal in it to help you start or continue this work. For those of you who are here, if you didn't get a journal, or if you think you're definitely going to need more than one, because they're small, there are more in the hallway. But this idea of reckoning and writing is not only for individuals. It is a useful exercise for communities too. As we come to the end of our 100-year anniversary at Congregation Bethel, this is probably a good time to do a little review, a little rewriting, and a little brainstorming about where we want to see ourselves next. But first, a poem. In 1852, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow visited what is commonly known as the Touro Synagogue in Newport, Rhode Island. At that point, the synagogue building was just about 100 years old. It had started being built in 1758. But the Jewish population of Newport dates back at least another 100 years, to the mid-1600s, and some of the earliest Sephardi Jewish immigration to the New World. The cemetery property was purchased by community members in 1677. During his visit, Longfellow, who is not Jewish, was so moved by his impressions of the active 200-year-old cemetery that he wrote his now famous poem, The Jewish Cemetery at Newport, which, for those of you with supplements, you can follow along as I read it. Or you can just... How strange it seems, these Hebrews in their graves, close by the street of this fair seaport town, silent beside the never silent waves, at rest in all this moving up and down. The trees are white with dust that o'er their sleep wave their broad curtains in the south wind's breath, while underneath these leafy tents they keep the long, mysterious exodus of death. And these sepulchral stones, so old and brown, that pave with level flags their burial place, seem like the tablets of the law thrown down and broken by Moses on his race. The very names recorded here are strange, of foreign accent and of different climes. Alvarez and Rivera interchanged with Abraham and Jacob of old times. Blessed be God, for he created death, the mourners said, and death is rest and peace. Then added in the certainty of faith, and gives life that nevermore shall cease. Closed are the portals of their synagogue. No psalms of David now the silence break. No rabbi reads the ancient Decalogue, the grand dialect the prophets spake. Gone are the living, but the dead remain, and not neglected, or a hand unseen, scattering its bounty like a summer rain, still keeps their graves and their remembrance green. How came they here? What burst of Christian hate? What persecution merciless and blind drove o'er the sea, that desert desolate, these Ishmaels and Hagars of mankind? They lived in narrow streets and lanes, obscure, ghetto and Judenstrasse, in mirk and mire, taught in the school of patience to endure the life of anguish and the death of fire. All their lives long, with the unleavened bread and bitter herbs of exile and its fears, the wasting famine of the heart they fed, and slacked its thirst with marah of their tears. Anathema Harampa was the cry that rang from town to town, from street to street. At every gate the accursed mortified, was mocked and jeered and spurned by Christian feet. pride and humiliation, hand in hand, walk with them through the world where they went, trampled and beaten where they as the sand, and yet unshaken as the continent. Where in the background figures vague and vast of patriarchs and prophets rose sublime, and all the great traditions of the past they saw reflected in the coming time. And those forever reverted look, the mystic volume of the world they read, spelling it backward like a Hebrew book, till life became a legend. Dead. But once more has been, shall be no more. But once has been, shall be no more. The groaning earth in travail and in pain brings forth its graces, but does not restore, and the dead nations never rise again. In reading this poem, I wonder if Longfellow was asking himself the same question that so many people ask when they come across the Jewish cemetery in Northumberland, Pennsylvania. There are Jews here? Where did they come from? Why are they here? What happened to them? The founders of the Newport Jewish community were Sephardic. I said they were merchants in the mid-1600s, trading in spices and in humans along this stretch of the Atlantic Ocean. They came from communities that were established after the expulsion of Jews from Portugal and Spain in 1492. Like so many Jewish immigrants, they sought prosperity and safety and had a strong desire to create a Jewish community. And also, like so many others, including our own, they established the cemetery first, and later, 100 years later, for them, a synagogue. Longfellow was an admirer and supporter of the Jewish people, and exhibited great sympathy for their historic oppression and their civilizational achievements. And he did this during a period of time when his fellow intellectuals and artists were not as supportive or complimentary. It was just at the brink in Europe of Jews being seen as full citizens and fully human by the law. This poem is rightly seen as a tribute, written out of respect and with great emotion. Still, Longfellow writes as if he's discovered the artifacts of a long-gone civilization. He paints the ancestors of those buried in these graves as long-suffering, archaic, and vaguely romantic in their connection to the tragic Jewish history and the biblical narrative. His portrait of a shuttered sanctuary and a dead nation ignores the fact that the Newport community, officially known as Congregation Yeshivat Israel, the Salvation of Israel, was still intact at the time. The synagogue building had been standing for 100 years, though at the time it was only open for holidays, funerals, and weddings. Wealthy members are no longer trading at Rhode Island ports, maintained both the building and the cemetery. Longfellow's characterization of a dead nation never to rise was inaccurate then, and certainly contradicts the reality of that community's longevity through today. There's a phrase I learned in my anthropology days, noble savage, that calls out the romanticizing of the other as being somehow simpler and more quaintly admirable than we, the more civilized observers. It implies that people in non-industrial communities are spared being tainted by industrial progress and its many challenges. Thus, they are thought of as providing a living example of what life was like for our ancestors prior to modernization. It is a sentiment that feels familiar to me sometimes when we have church visitors at our synagogue looking for insight into the life history of Jesus. Longfellow's poem also reminds me of that phrase, the noble savages. As well-meaning as he was, it is a romanticized portrait of those dead but noble. 15 years later, another poet visited Newport, Rhode Island, and wrote what is thought of as a response to Longfellow. Emma Lazarus was a writer and activist and is best known as the author of The New Colossus, quoted on the Statue of Liberty. Unlike Longfellow, Lazarus was Jewish and from a Sephardi family, so was familiar with the history of the early Portuguese Jews who came as merchants and settlers in the early 1600s. Her poem in the Jewish synagogue in Newport reflects this, and you can find it in the supplement. Here, where the noises of the busy town, oceans plunge and roar, can enter not, we stand and gaze around with tearful awe, and muse upon the consecrated spot. No signs of life are here, the very prayers inscribed around are in a dead language. The light of the perpetual lamp is spent, that undying radiance was to shed. What prayers were in this temple offered up, wrung from sad hearts that knew no joy on earth, by these lone exiles of 1,000 years, from the fair sunrise land that gave them birth. How, as we gaze in this new world of light, upon this relic of the days of old, the present vanishes in tropic gloom, and eastern towns and temples of the old. Again, we see the patriarchal flock, the purple seas, the hot blue sky overhead, the slaves of Egypt, omens, mysteries, dark fleeing hosts, trifling angels ahead. A wondrous light upon the sky-kissed mount, a man who reads Jehovah's written law, its blinding glory and effulgence rare, unto a people prone with reverent awe. The pride of the luxuries barbaric come from the rich court of loyal Solomon. Alas, we wait, one scene alone remains, the exiles by the streams of Babylon. Our voices softened voices send us back again, but mournful echoes through the empty hall. Our footsteps have a strange, unnatural sound, and with unwanted gentleness they fall. The weary ones, the sad, the suffering, all found their comfort in the holy place. The children's gladness and men's gratitude took voice and mingled in chanted praise. The funeral and the marriage now, alas, we know not which is sadder to recall, for youth and happiness have followed age, and green grass lieth at the wall. Nevertheless, the sacred shrine is holy yet, with its lone floors where reverent feet once trod. Take off your shoes as by the burning bush, before the mystery of death. On first read, the two poems are very similar tributes to a Jewish community that once was. Lazarus also brings us back to a romantic past, though more rooted in an Eastern experience and tied explicitly to exile. But she turns her attention on the sanctuary instead of the cemetery. She's telling the story of the centrality of the sacred space in which exiles, refugees, and outsiders found comfort and community. She invokes songs of praise and gratitude, as well as cycles of life, weddings, and funerals. Longfellow focuses on the European diaspora experience, the ghettos and Judenstrasse. Lazarus stays in the Middle East. When she references the exiles by the streams of Babylon, she is reminding us of what happened to those Jews. Some returned to Israel. Others became a model for a living diaspora nation without a country, a model that we continue to follow today. Longfellow ends in irreversible loss, while Lazarus ends in eternal sanctuary. So what will we write about Congregation Bethel after 100 years? How will future visitors and Jewish residents tell the story of the early 21st century Congregation Bethel? In many ways, we no longer do the traditional rituals and activities that were expected of a synagogue community. But we are still a holy community that has a sacred space in which to gather. The Jewish experience everywhere is one of change and adaptation, whether that is on the shores of Babylon, the Judenstrasse of Eastern Europe, or the banks of the Susquehanna River. But then there's this pandemic. It is unprecedented that only a handful of people are allowed in the synagogue on Rosh Hashanah, and the rest are able to be here virtually. And it is very rare among Jewish congregations in the United States for people to be gathering in person at all. This is a chapter in our communal book of life that we really did not see coming a year ago, or even 6 months ago. If we are no longer what we used to be, what are we going to become? My father was a huge history buff. When I was in school, I never shared his enthusiasm for the subject. All those dates and names to memorize seemed kind of pointless. My appreciation grew as I started to see the connections between historic events and cultural changes. An historic moment is one that forces an unexpected change and resets how we understand the world. The Babylonian exile is associated with dates and names to memorize, but more significantly, it led to a radical change in how Jews would worship that we still follow today. The expulsion of the Jews from Portugal and Spain in 1492 led to an early diaspora community in the developing Americas. And new freedoms in Europe in the late 1800s, sparked by the intellectual and philosophical schools of thought of the time, led to the different denominations of Judaism and a broader understanding of Jewish practice. We are living through an historic moment. Yes, the global pandemic has upended how we do everything from buy our groceries and worship services. This is hard, and we are not always prepared to manage or even find new ways of operating. But it is also a moment of incredible possibility. What we do now, the way we accommodate change, the way we prioritize and meet our needs, the way we connect with one another locally and globally, all of these solutions and accommodations are actively creating a world that will be. As I said last night, this is not going to be over. We're just going to learn how to adapt and change as it happens. This is why I'm finding it exciting and challenging to be writing my own book of life for this year and to be one of the authors of our communal book of life. Because so much is unprecedented, so much is possible. We have the opportunity to envision the changes we want to experience and start trying out new ways of bringing them to life. I don't know what will be said of us in the future, but I imagine it will reflect how well we respond to the opportunities we have today, and what a powerful way to start the new year. We're going to continue in the prayer book on page 282. Where we will hear the words that I just referenced. And please rise for the protest as I open the heart.
They are
out. The day of judgment has arrived. For even the heavenly hosts feel they are judged and sense that they are not without fault. In this day we shall pass before you one by one like a flock of sheep. As the shepherd counts his sheep, making each of them pass under his staff, so you review every living being, measuring the years and decreeing the destiny of every creature. Continuing on page 284. Repentance, prayer, and deeds of kindness can remove the severity of the decree. Our origin is dust and our end is dust. At the hazard of our life, we earn our bread. We are like a fragile vessel, like grass that withers, the flower that fades, the shadow that passes, the cloud that vanishes, the wind that blows, the dust that floats, the dream that flies away. But you, sovereign of all, are the living and everlasting. Amen. Please be seated. Final reading from there's the supplement for today. Una Time and Tokat, that's the name of the prayer we just read, an adaptation that I then adapted from Rabbi Rachel Golden. Every year we have to face this prayer, and every year it is so painful. Who shall live and who shall die? And this year even more so. These words are too real. I don't believe that God is up there somewhere literally writing down names in a book, determining our destiny. But I do know that I need to say these words, especially this year. Since COVID hit, the curtain has been pulled back, revealing the truth that is always there, the truth that this prayer forces us to confront. Each of us is truly a shattered urn, grass that must wither, a particle of dust floating on the wind. When we sit with the truth of our vulnerability, the fragility of this life, this is when it feels most precious. And from that place of knowing how precious this all is, we are moved. To pray for an even more genuine place, to do real tshuva in our relationships, and for the sake of our community, and to devote ourselves to the pursuit of justice. Because, as we have so vividly seen this year, we do know who is most likely to live and who is most likely to die. In this country, when a pandemic hits, or when a car gets pulled over by the police, or healthcare is made inaccessible, or environmental crises destroy already vulnerable neighborhoods. We are all vulnerable, but in an imbalanced world, some are more vulnerable than others, and others are now facing new insecurities. And that is something we can vow to change. The question to be asked is, when will it? Page 342, rising for the later. It is incumbent on us to praise God, but it is also incumbent on us to go out to fulfill this vision. Mourner's Cottage on page 346. In this coming week, we remember the archetypes of Joseph Newman, Aaron Berman, Frederick Golden, Melba Kaufman, and Samuel Osterwell, as well as those in their first year of passing, Mark Clapper, Jay Harris, Gloria Schwartz, May Teichman, Marty Kaufman, and Bernice Stett. Those reciting Kaddish, or if it is your custom to rise for Kaddish, invite yourself now. Ela ela poder falar de lá tudo que está fazendo lá. A mim lá me ama muito. Eles chamam Rabbi Shmaya the Chaim of the Holy Israel. Say shalom to you, hallelujah. Say shalom to the Holy Israel. Amen. Please join us tomorrow at 10 a.m. We will be streaming starting then. We will only be doing the shofar service here in the sanctuary tomorrow. We'll start with the Inu Malkinu, and then we'll go right into the shofar service. I'm very grateful to John Rodbander are working with me to figure out a creative solution to blow the in-person shofar this year. And if you don't get enough of the in-person shofar or it's hard to hear, you can go on our YouTube channel where we have several guest shofar blowers and other beautiful. After the shofar service, I will say a few words about Tashlu, and those who want can proceed to the Susquehanna River for a self-guided service. I have copies of that service here. I have emailed them to all of you. If you have not received it and would like another copy, please email me. My shot ends. I will send it to you. If I'm being honest, the thing I really miss are the comments. Not just for food and cookies to roll and eggs, but for the opportunity just to be with all of you. So to permit me to, on our behalf, invoke the Amen prayer with the Yush and the Motzi, and then you all at home can go eat, you all here can go home and eat. Grab things. May Peterbilt, our Lord our God, and God of our ancestors, that the new year bring us well-being and blessing. Inscribe us in the book of life of God and grant us in the new year a life of peace, goodness, a life of blessing, sustenance, and health, a life marked by true piety and benevolence, a life free from all shame and reproach, a life of abundance and honor, a life ennobled by love for God and reverence for you, a life in which all the worthy desires of our hearts will be fulfilled. And we said, Amen. Shalom, shalom. We will leave the Zoom link on if anybody needs to check in with anybody on Zoom, but we will see that our sound will be off as well as the video. Thank you.
Hey everyone, Shabbat Shalom, Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, everybody.
Nick.
Hello.
Shana Tova and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Sweet and healthy for everyone.
Sweet New Year to everybody. Nick, that was a great letter you wrote.
Oh, thank you.
I don't have to write one now. Thank you.
Oh, there are so many letters to be written these days.
I think